and we were all jubilant because there were all the justices. So it was just this, okay, the springtime of pro-life politics and where we saw such incredible hope. Then with the Kavanaugh hearings, no one will ever forget those. And I was sitting in that room for those hearings, and that's where I would say would be, having lived through that, I don't think I can compare it to anything else. The anger and the attacks in the hallways, Lindsey Graham's just mountaintop moment speaking for what these hearings were about and what they weren't was so important, all by the grace of God. There is no way that could have happened without him. And the timing of it all.
Yes, somewhere in all that, God's hand had to be there to provide that opportunity. This is one of these things, Marjorie, that drives me crazy when I run into some pastors and church leaders, and they're just not in the battle. Now, obviously, a lot of pastors and priests and other religious leaders speak up for the sanctity of life, but there are so many evangelical churches that think that somehow getting involved in the Supreme Court confirmation battles and all that, well, Gary, that's got nothing to do with the scripture. When everything we believe in, the idea that we're all made in the image of God, the whole idea of religious liberty, which is what the country was built on, it all depends on who's on the Supreme Court, who interprets the Constitution. And when you think and saw, as we did, what happened to Justice Kavanaugh when he was nominated, and what happened to his family, and the smears he had to sit there and hear that he was a serial gang rapist.
I happened to be sitting not far behind him and next to a lot of Hollywood, people that were out there for that moment. And it was so apparent, the lies that they were creating in the moment and then whispering them to the media that was actually standing in the room. It was really witnessing the lie, the big lie. And if you didn't believe it, was everything that you just said about how important these hearings are, how important these confirmations are from our own side, you'd see it by looking in the eye of the other side, because they knew everything was at stake. And the gift that our founders gave us was the tools to fight for the principles that are in those founding documents, and that we would be able to do that. It isn't going to not a king is going to correct it. We're there to fight for these ideas which are bigger than kings and principalities. And what a privilege that is. So, when you see your country going south, take heart, because you have the power. And what better example at this time in history, when everyone has been so bereft and downhearted, to see what we, working together, working through the system, have seen Roe versus Wade overturned. Literal children, actual children, are living now that would not be living before had we not taken up those tools of democracy and gone to work.
There's a lot of polling out on this and research about a lot of Americans, majority of Americans, but particularly Christians, feel that the country's been headed in the wrong direction. We could spend hours talking about how our country's been headed in the wrong direction. We could spend hours talking about the breakdown of the American family, the breakdown of reliable standards of right and wrong, increasing violence, drug addiction, the coarsening of our culture. The list goes on and on. But when you look at the last couple of decades, really, the big victories were those three confirmation battles because of what they did, or the significance or relevance of those nominations and confirmations to the sanctity of life and also to religious liberty. And then also the tremendous victory on June 24th of last year, when the court finally admitted there was never a constitutional right to abortion. As you know, Marjorie, the word abortion is not in the Constitution. It was the lie that somehow in that sacred document there was a right to abort. The court finally corrected that lie. So on that day, do you remember where you were when you first heard, now previously there was a leak of the draft opinion, but we were all worried that maybe that leak wasn't accurate or one of the justices would change their mind. But where were you on the 24th?
Yeah, it seemed like such an impossible dream, no matter what.
Yes.
While there was a leak, and there was an idea that leak would be reflective of the actual position of the court, or it could have been some sort of trial balloon that caused a correction, in the court. But no. So we were waiting, as I'm sure you were, and we watched it every day come down. It was also a lesson in how things get done in the Supreme Court. We waited as these decisions were coming down. The week of June the 20th and the previous week kept coming. We'd gather on the phone